Welcome, I'm David Pearl. We're here at King's Place and I want you to join me in the Green Room. The Green Room is an experiment that we're doing to see if we can create something which is a little bit like the backstage of working life. You know, a lot of us spend a lot of the time on screen, on stage, doing our professional thing. And before we know it, when the day is finished, we're straight into domestic stuff. What we wanted to do is create like a gap, a place between your professional life and your private life where we can sort of hang out with other professionals, you know, chill out, have a laugh, and maybe learn something. It's all unscripted, so who knows what's going to happen in there. But there is it's not so much a theme as a kind of topic that it's certainly been on my mind, and I know it's a lot of people's mind out there, which is sort of creativity. This seems to be a time when we need a lot of creativity, but at the same time, it's more difficult in a way because we can't connect as we used to. So that's going to be a kind of theme. And just to let you know, we've got some pretty creative people in the room here. We've got a theatre producer turned author. We've got a ballet dancer turned artistic consultant. We've got a creative cafe owner, a ceramicist, a filmmaker. We've even got an expert on squiggly careers, a woman who knows about what happens when careers go squiggly. And frankly, a lot of our careers have gone squiggly at the moment. So listen out for her. We've also got a young advertising agency school that is listening in and is actually working live to turn a brief that we've set them into an ad. And this is not about work, though. Okay, so what I want you to do is chill out, take off the mask, put down the script, don't worry about the role you normally play, and just let's have some fun. So in we go. Let's go. Roll ident. Behind me, you see in action living ceramics happening. We've got sculptor Jo Pearl. Yes, a relation. Yes. And what she is doing is she is going to be ceramically commenting on the conversation that we're having. Which brings me now to the centre of the room and our guest for this evening. Woo!
I think all creative acts, whether you are the doer or the receiver, have an element of uncertainty about them, where we're not quite sure where this is going, but let's run with it. Yeah. And in fact, I want to test this. So I'm going to take you by surprise. I want to ask everyone in the room just to close their eyes for a second and keep them closed. Yeah. So listen, that wasn't me showing off. A couple of weeks ago I was in Italy and I was asked to speak in a workshop around how we could build strong partnerships. And I thought, well, what can I bring to that conversation? And I chose to speak about, I think, the role of the artist, which is often, I think, overlooked, or they're often the last people to be invited to the conversation, especially in such uncertain times as we're living in now. And I thought, rather than just, get at my clipboard, I did exactly what I've just done with you, with the guest there. And then I followed up with some questions, which I can ask you, which is, I suspect you might have been saying, well, what is that sound? Is it live? Is it recorded? How's he doing that? What does he think he's doing? I mean, who does he think he is? You don't always know the answer. So what are you going to be when you grow up? What is the answer to this problem that we've just been set? How am I going to respond to the challenge that Dave has just set us? There's something about that state of being which I think I relate to my career as a creative artist, particularly at the beginning of my career, but even now when I've been doing largely desk-based jobs, but in the cultural sector.
There was this idea that a career was a straight line into the future, a kind of, once you had a career, it would like a railway track. But the word career, if you look it up in the dictionary, means to tumble down a mountainside in an uncontrolled manner. Yeah. So there's this kind of, they were maybe fibbing to us at school about the nature of careers. And they're not straight, they're squiggly, which brings me to Sarah Ellis of Squiggly
Seamless.
Let's see,
Seamless,
what do you have here? And
my ceramic CV, as you put it, so
yeah,
elegantly.
how is this about your career to date?
So at school, my favourite subject was philosophy. And I loved kind of broadly arts type subjects, in English literature, philosophy, sociology. And then I panicked and I thought, I'm never going to get a job. And so I did business studies at university, having never done business or economics or anything like that. And not only did I do business studies, I did a degree that was essentially an early version of The Apprentice. I'm very introverted, and that was horrendous. But it got me a very good job very early. And so I started my career, probably very different to lots of people here tonight, working in very big brands, climbing that ladder. And I thought it was all about how far and how fast I could get as quickly as possible. And I was pretty good at it. And I was really ambitious, and I'm still really ambitious, but maybe in perhaps a slightly different way. So the first part of my ceramics is kind of climbing that ladder, kind of clawing my way up, pretending to be someone I wasn't, thinking I needed to be an extrovert, all that kind of not good stuff, to be honest. And I think once I had a realisation that actually, as we've already started to hear this evening, that careers are squiggly. On average, we're going to have 5 different types of career in our working life, and that actually I don't need to be pigeonholed. I don't need to be or look or sound a certain way to be successful. I can define this for myself. And at that point, actually, I still continue to work in some really big companies for a while, but I think I really kind of found my flow in terms of I kind of stopped pretending, and I started enjoying the work that I was doing. I particularly enjoyed helping people with their careers and career development in a really practical way. I'm a big fan of that point that we've kind of already been made around doing. And actually, I was speaking to a philosopher, actually called Roman Krznaric, the other week. He's a brilliant philosopher, and he's a very practical philosopher, which is not always what you get with philosophy. And his best piece of career advice is to act first and think later. And I'm a big advocate of this idea that in our careers, rather than saying what do you want to be when you grow up, or trying to pick or choose a career because of a career advisor, that the best thing we can do is experiment, is to explore, is to follow those things that we find really interesting. And sometimes that'll work out, and sometimes it won't. But actually, the more that we do that, and the kind of being braver, I guess, in terms of that, the more likely we are to find work that really fulfills us.
David, you run 64 Million Artists, or you founded?
Yeah.
Co-founder.
Yeah.
Be careful, he's just the co-founder.
Just the co-founder.
Jo Hunter's the other founder. She's out
is
there
indeed,
with a
the
gun.
director.
Okay, co-founder. Got that. But just, in essence, what's the heart of 64 million?
So the contention at the heart of 64 million artists is there are already 64 million artists in this country, but that many of us have lost touch with our inner sculptor, silly dancer, den builder, storyteller. I guess the central idea is that creativity is a superpower, and we've all got it, but just many of us have kind of lost touch, connection with that superpower. It's what makes us human. It's what makes us different from cats and dogs. I'm starting a sentence now, I don't know how it's going to end, and that's a creative process in itself. And anybody who's over the age of 2 is doing the same thing every day in every living and breathing moment they've got. And I think to Sarah's point, if we can embrace that, embrace our inner creative, and rather than sort of suffocate it and say, well, the creatives all live over there in the creative department, and actually I'm an accountant, it's not my job to have ideas, or I'm an administrator, it's not my job to have...
Let me be polemical for a second, because I know that we've all been creative, we also run stuff. I'm going to be a sort of devil's advocate. Creatives, doers, perhaps it is a false dichotomy, but perhaps you do need people who are more creative and those who are more doers, or, you need the accountant stuff. Kenneth, you've run an organisation, several organisations, which are, highly creative. Is it great for everybody to be going around thinking I'm a creative? Or?
Well, I could answer that in different ways. I think you need different kinds of... You need people with different skills. Yeah. And clearly you don't necessarily want everyone to have the same kind of personality. But I think, certainly when I took over the place, having not fulfilled a senior management role of that kind, and I was suddenly chief executive.
So the place is just
the
for
place
those
is
who
a
don't know.
contemporary dance centre, not far from here.
In London, yeah.
Which has its own theatre, its own sort of vocational school for training dancers, its own had a resident company. It now has multiple artists. Had a resident company when I was there, and classes for adults and children. So all these different things under one roof. And 100 full-time employees, 300 or more part-time staff. And I had to come up with a 5-year business plan within 6 months. Go. And it was intimidating, but I was convinced that I would only have some of the ideas that a lot of the other ideas needed to and would naturally come from other people in the organisation.
Yes, it's a
so I felt
collective-
part of my role was to just, allow some of that wisdom and intelligence to filter through from the rest of the organisation.
Beautiful.
Whether I succeed or not is another, but that was certainly my mindset.
There's this kind of, you've got to feel your way towards it. There's Arthur Koestler, I think, said, creativity is the one human activity where the teacher and the pupil reside in the same person. There's this sense that there's no one outside you can teach you. You've got to find yourself. But at the same time, as you've said, and this is true of ensembles, like in Propera, the ideas don't really come from you. They come from the space between you. They kind of emerge out of the space between you.
My definition of creativity is very, very strict. It's the expression of an original idea that provides value. So I'm not looking for creativity when I'm looking at students, because it's very hard under that definition of creativity, the expression of an original idea that provides value, to see that in the way that we select our students. And we have an unorthodox, as you can imagine, an unorthodox selection process. I'm looking really for two things when I'm looking at talent. One, are they going to make me famous? Two, is it going to happen without me damaging their mental health? So in other words, I'm looking at attitude. I want people that can think big and are prepared to get up again and again and again in order to knock that ball, out the park. So it's about resilience, and it's about attitude and aptitude. You mentioned Sir Ken Robinson, rest in peace, earlier, David. You'll maybe be aware that Sir Ken did some research into creative intelligence. Do you know about his research into what makes a creative genius?
Go for it.
He discovered that we are all creative geniuses as toddlers. We're all creative geniuses.
And then I think there is a point where people kind of go, oh, is this it? Is this what I'm choosing? Is this what I'm going to keep doing? And people feel stuck. There's a real sense of kind of people feeling kind of stuck in where they are and what they do. And that's sometimes where we need a bit of perspective in terms of kind of reminding ourselves, probably, how long we're all going to be working for, that you can change, that is possible, you can unlearn and relearn. I think sometimes people don't believe it about themselves. And we probably need to tell more stories and share more stories of kind of going, it is really possible, and we can do different things, and we can try things. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. There's other things that we can do. And it's interesting when you see, there's adverts I'm sure lots of people have seen in the past couple of weeks encouraging people to perhaps retrain and reskill.
Oh, yes. I think people in this room might have
I
seen
think
those. Which one are you thinking about?
Let's not avoid the topic. I find it interesting. I think maybe it should be the other way around. If we think about what are the skills that we really need that are really unique to us, where we can add lots of value. I kind of get Mark's point around he's got a very kind of strict definition of creativity, and I think that can be really useful. But equally, in all companies, they're all going to have new problems to solve. They're going to need people to think really creatively and not be as worried or too preoccupied with efficiency and productivity, which I think are metrics, and that's perhaps gone a bit too far for people. And you've got so used to being overwhelmed by email, and we see so much. For some people, that kind of the stress and the overwhelm is just massive, and people are burning out more commonly than they ever have before. Someone told me, and I assume this is true, so I'm going to kind of take it as being true, about lobsters. Sounds a bit left field, but bear with me. That lobsters obviously have their hard shells, and then when lobsters grow, they get those shells just kind of come off, and then that's when they're at their most vulnerable. But that's when they grow. So there's this point about vulnerability and growth, and then you kind of, yes, you do need your kind of next shell to protect you, but actually for us to really be able to kind of get that growth, it kind of goes hand in hand with that vulnerability. And I think now vulnerability is starting to be talked about much more, kind of generally in terms of going, vulnerability is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, so we're reframing it. The other thing I think that I see when I've spent kind of more time in kind of more purist creative environments is how brilliant creative people are at constructive criticism. And I think that's what's needed more as well in organisations. So I've been on a course the last 6 weeks learning to draw. And one of the things that being part of that group where, without wanting to compare myself, I was the worst drawer by some significant margin, but that group was, it was unique, and I was thinking, this is so interesting. If you could create this environment more commonly in organisations, it was incredibly supportive, and incredibly critical in a very supportive way. And everyone was kind of holding their ideas very lightly, and they said that was one of their kind of principles. I kind of really believe in your ideas, but then kind of hold them lightly, and you're all there to kind of help yourselves get better. And I thought there was something about the creativity of those people and kind of what we were doing and spending our time doing that I rarely observe in organisations, and I think would be incredibly useful as we're kind of navigating all of this squiggliness.
Could you think of anybody that you'd like to do a shout out to? People that are, you know, plugging away, often against the odds, at not such easy times, and you know, could do with a little bit of a spotlight, a little bit of love. Sarah, you're smiling. Can you think of someone?
I think lots of people need a lot of love right now. But one of the people that I've known for a long time is a lady called Pip Jameson. So Pip Jameson is the founder of a company called The Dots.
The Dots.
The Dots. And The Dots is it's a way of basically curating loads of creative people. So you go on and rather than sharing like your CV, you share your portfolio. You share the kind of the work that you've done, the projects that you've worked on. So I'm sure Mark and his team will be quite familiar with it. So say you've worked on an ad project, rather than just saying, because obviously most creative projects are collaborative, if not all of them, there's the kind of the ad and then there's like, right, who produced it, who edited it. And so it's kind of about sharing the work that you've done, who collaborated on that work, and it's a different way, I think, of finding people to work with, but also people to hire.
I would like to, flag up an organisation, not because they necessarily are struggling, although having said that, everyone's been hit by the pandemic. And this is an organisation that works with the musicians, and it's called Chineke. ! Chineke is an Igbo word.
Chi-Chi's.
Yes, an Igbo word from Nigeria to do with creativity and all things good. Chineke is a foundation, but they run Europe's first majority black, Asian and ethnically diverse classical orchestra. And there's a senior professional orchestra, which sometimes has, between 60 and 75 players from all over the world.
David McClum.
I'm going to sound like a one-trick pony, like I've only got one group of people I'm thinking about, but I'm thinking about the 250,000+ people in this country who make up the vast majority of our freelance theatre workforce, many of whom have had no access to any support since lockdown first began in the middle of March. They keep our industry going. Every time you go to a theatre, 70% of the people who've made that show happen are on freelance contracts. And unlike the people now who might be in employment and have been furloughed, these people are struggling. And without them, we risk losing them to jobs in IT or jobs in defence or wherever else we're meant to be all working in the future. And these people are the beating heart of theatre. There's a brilliant voluntary group called Freelancers Make Theatre Work, hashtag Freelancers Make Theatre Work. They're doing some extraordinary work to really kind of maintain the profile and the passion of those people at the very centre of the conversation about how we get out of this awful situation. As many of you will know, our theatres are closed at the moment. Most of them are closed at the moment. And there's a real risk that unless those people are supported, there'll be nothing to go on in those theatres in 6 months, 12 months' time when they reopen. So we need to find a way of supporting those extraordinary people, not just the actors who appear on stage, but the costume makers, the wig makers, the stage management, all of those incredible people who've committed so many hours above and beyond to making stuff happen. And we're in danger of losing them. So let's find a way, Freelancers Make Theatre Work, of keeping them in gainful employment.
So I'm coming to the audience now. Audience? They're just, have you noticed, they're just primed. When I say audience, they cheer themselves. And so you should. Way! This is like the Pirates chorus. We'd love you. I know that Improper are keen to sing a song, to sing an instant advert. Yeah? About an individual that you know in your lives who's doing creative stuff. It could be your local baker, if you have such a thing. It could be a car mechanic. It could be anybody. And you could make it up as well, because it's enjoyable to watch Improper have to get out of trouble. Does anyone have someone that genuinely they think, God, they really are creative and deserve to have a song sung about them? Tim.
My wonderful nephew, who's autistic and very, very friendly, and he's taught me, he goes around and says hello to everybody.
He says hello to everybody.
Including the bus drivers.
Including the bus driver.
Everyone in Croydon knows him. So
everyone in Croydon knows him.
Everyone.
And his name is?
His name is Matthew.
Matthew, autistic, goes around Croydon and speaks to everybody, including the... And he says?
And he just says hello.
Hello.
He goes into shops, and your shop's lovely, and people really respond.
Your shop's lovely. That's great. Matthew is the ad for now. So let's just hear a little bit about Matthew if we could.
London is so boring. Londoners don't talk to one another.
Hello.
London is so dull. Why won't anybody say
Hello.
But what is this? Who is he? He said hello to me.
Hello is the easiest word I know. I say it everywhere I go. Hello.
Hello.
I don't say no, I just say hello.
While we've been doing that, there have been 6, I think at least, young people whose lives have been turned into a living hell because they have been trying to honour the brief that David set, which is clearly dear to all of our hearts, which is how we're going to release some money into the theatrical community by, I think, November the 1st. And we'll need some theatre professionals because the lights have just gone out in our theatre. I'm not saying Bruce isn't a theatre professional, but he's an intern, lifelong intern. No, Bruce, just goes to show, in some ways that's going to make things better and certainly less hot. So, Mark Lewis. I've got to say, by the way, we talk about creativity as being a kind of lovely, probably, you know, mauve-shaded, perfume-scented thing. But if you hang out at the School of Communication Arts, as I have as a mentor, it's brutal, I've got to say. Brutally, lovingly brutal, but and no, as you said, no mental health, no lasting mental scars. But I'm hoping that you will, Mark, not pull your punches, as it were, and let's just see what raw material your students have come up with and where the real value, as you put it, is. And let's also make sure that the winner gets 100 points. Would that be okay?
100 points?
I think 100 points. What do we think?
100 points.
I think 100 points. I'm reliably informed that's something worth having, but you'll explain. So, Marco, have we got anything to look at yet?
We'll just flick through these in just a moment. But just to explain kind of what's happened is about an hour ago, David set this brief, I think, and I think in front of us are about 24, we call them scamps. They're vomits of ideas, like the first thoughts of ideas down onto a page for us to discuss.
The Comedy of Errors has run for far too long. Fund Freelancers in Theatre by November the 1st. Ooh, nice picture as well. Moving on. Et Who Brute? No freelancers, no actors, no audiences, no shows. The arts need your support. Yay! One hell of a Halloween hangover. Save the arts by 1st of November. Don't let this be the only one. Don't let. Oh God. Brexit. Don't let this be the only shit show you see. Support, support, support. Yay!
I like to eat a lot.
So we're liking the Shakespearean, although it's a bit niche. It's a bit niche. I'm going to come back to our client, David. You set this ball rolling.
I think Et tu Brute.
Et tu Brute, we think, gets the golden Fig Newton. We think in 100 points goes to Et tu Brute.
I think to be or not to be is the one line of Shakespeare that probably everyone knows.
Yeah, to eat or not to eat.
Yeah,
so we're loving that one.
I think that's right.
But Mark, you are in a way, it's your school. What do you think?
What do I think? I think there were so many good ones there, David, weren't there?
Yes.
Oh my God. So look, I would I would like to have brought a couple of bits and pieces together. I really loved the Comedy of Errors. I think it was one of the early ones that came in, that it's run for too long. I could see that being a really interesting poster. There was a really interesting thought there. I thought the Et tu Brute was really strong. I thought the shit show was great. My favourite was Flats. Like that urgency that it's true, isn't it? That building on Drury Lane or Shaftesbury Avenue or Haymarket just might end up being sold to a pension fund to create an Airbnb setup.
Makes it real.
I mean, that's the truth of the matter is that's what's probably going to happen if we don't get this sorted. So I loved that one for that reason.
Okay, so what we're going to do is the client here is agreeing, but what I'd like to do is to double the prize money and make sure that the other 100 gets distributed.
You are a man with generosity pumping through that 6'5" frame of yours.
So thanks to the SCA students, thanks to you, Mark. Bravo.
Thank you.
So we're nearly done here, but behind my left shoulder, an act of creativity has been happening. And I just turned around and it was like, holy my gosh. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to find out what Joe's been up to. You've been sculpting in clay as we've been doing this.
I have.
Should we take a little bit of a look? So what have you been doing, Joe?
Well, I've been 3D scribing the conversation as best I could. It's what the things, it was a lovely way the conversation twisted and turned, and the idea of careers and developing ideas, I think sort of informed my thinking. There were some standout moments. We've got Mark talking about he wants to have a Nobel Prize winner that makes advertisers making the world a better place. That's my own Nobel Prize thing here. We've got divergent thinking on our standard bearer, and also original ideas that bring value. We've got sort of sense of resilience and fragility that the arts bring. I was trying to bring out here. We've got ponies, horses running from the Impropera crew, and improv and the love of improv, and sort of fingers pointing all around, because we're all creative. So there we are. That was this evening's conversation.
Have you ever done this before?
No, I've never done this before. It's a first, what can I say? This is not my normal thing.
And looking at
but
it...
I've had a lot of fun. I mean, it's been an interesting process, actually.
Yeah.
I love the fact that clay can be made into pretty much any shape. It's the most flexible and organic, and it's under our feet and available to us all. So I love to share it. And
can I just say as well, it's a beautiful thing, but it's the doing that's the really exciting thing, isn't it? It's a verb. Yeah. Creativity, I think, is a verb. It's the doing that makes you feel human and happy and all those things.
Absolutely.
Do you want to say a little bit about Rage?
Oh, well, shout out, I need your help, viewers. I am in the process of making a project at the moment. It's called All the Rage, and I'm sort of tapping into what it feels like in certainly the UK, a sort of sense of anger about what's been happening recently. And so I am set myself the challenge to sculpt 100 heads expressing a sense of rage and fury, because I need to feel my friends around me and a collective mob that are going to come together and defend things like the arts and health for all. So this is Morag, who I sculpted the other week, and she's an opera singer, and she was expressing absolute fury. So if you want to help me, send me mugshots of yourself. You can take them on the iPhone, HD please, front and both sides, and then a rear view, because it's quite helpful to see the rear view of the head. Email them to me, studio@joepearl.com. I'd love to receive them, and I'll include you in my creative rage. Thank you.
Hurrah! So transforming rage into beauty. And I just want us to finish up. I wonder whether in Propera we have an anthem in us. I asked at the beginning of the show, or even before the beginning of the show, if we could think about completing the sentence let's. Let's There's something very creative, very active, and it's about, as we've been talking about, it's about taking creativity and making a dent on the world, making things better, making things more beautiful, making things move ahead. Anyone got any what would be your let's sentence, David?
Let's give our inner 8-year-old permission to run through the fields and the streets.
Let's give our inner 8-year-old permission to run. You have our permission, David.
Thank you.
Any let's from the audience? Let's
flow.
Let's
flow with life.
Let's flow with life. That sounds fantastic. That's not the sort of thing that you often hear in London.
It does.
Where is home for you?
Home is London for me.
Perfect.
But as well,
Thank you.
my heart as well is in Spain. So I'm
In Spain. How do you say flow with life in Spanish?
Fluye con la vida.
Oh, wow. That sounds so much better. But flow with life. I think we might be able to work with that. Any other let's? If it was written on your gravestone, let's.
There's one from YouTube.
Which is?
Ooh. Let's make squiggliness our superpower, from Norman Furlong.
Ah, let's make squiggliness our superpower. I always feel like this. The motto for this show is "Let's dance like no one's watching."
I was thinking
because the chances, but the chances are no one is. Is the second one. I think "Let's flow with life" is such a beautiful, sentiment. I wonder whether we could sing.
Spanish again, 3 hours.
Fluye con la vida. Fluye.
Fluide con la vida.
Fluye con la vida.
I wonder if I might come and sing with you. I'll come and sing
go.
with you.
Yes.
When you are small, when you're not tall, everything comes easier to you.
When you are small, things don't seem scary, like reaching your arms and saying, I feel lucky, I feel glad.
So inside you, no after you, I won't interrupt again.
Please don't interrupt him.
I wish you'd sing it, 'cause I can't think it. My mind is all in pieces, so after you.
I see you're in such strife. What you must do is flow with life. Flow with what she said.
Life is so much better when we flow.
Oh, la vida.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Come again. Next Green Room, sometime in November. We'll be feeling our way. I think it's the 23rd of November. Vanessa, what else should I say at this point?
Sign up for updates.
Sign up for updates and subscribe. I haven't said it this time, but I'm going to say it again. Light us up, right? That's what the young people say. So subscribe on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Tell your friends. This has been The Green Room. See you again soon. Stay well. Stay well. Stay happy. Thank you. Thank you, Antonin. Whoa!
Sorry, if you're going to mingle, you need to put your mask on.